It is time to get out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis, and we are live here 5:30 on this Monday afternoon. Now, I do want to update you guys on a little housekeeping rules before we get involved in today's packed show. And it's packed because there will be no out of pocket tomorrow on Christmas Eve. There will be no out of pocket Thursday, the day after Christmas. The day after Christmas Eve. And we will be back on Friday to talk some NFL action and do our normal NFL picks. But with that said, we have some NBA games that we need to predict today. We also need to predict some NFL games that will happen before we see each other again. I hope you guys are enjoying. We are providing a little bit of content for you during this Christmas week. Jason dropped 3 from deep earlier today, talking about some of these Christmas games, talking about Victor Wembanyama having a huge 10-block game. What a unicorn himself. And Boom Broadcasting has its own unicorn, and I got to welcome in this guy right now. Again, he is the host of 3 from Deep, and he is the co-host of Sideline Savant. So I got to welcome in my guy, Jason Colenso. Jason, dress sharply.
Yes, sir.
I guess we could call you a sharp-dressed man.
I'll take that. Thank you, sir. How we doing? Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. Very excited.
Now, I hope people have been enjoying the content we have for them on Boom Broadcasting, but I was enjoying or trying to enjoy some college football games this past weekend, and I just want to go ahead and share some of the scores that happened over the weekend when it came to the college football playoff. Now, this is the first time that the college football playoff has been expanded to 12 teams, and let me tell you exactly what we experienced. We experienced Notre Dame beating Indiana 27-17. We experienced Texas winning 38-24 over Clemson. We experienced Penn State stomping SMU 38-10, as I called, by the way. Nobody wanted to believe me. And we saw Ohio State cream Tennessee 42-17. Now, some of these scores were closer than they actually were this past weekend. And that begs a question. And I wanted to pose it on Out of Pocket because I don't think it's entirely out of pocket to think this. I know 2 teams were too little. I know 4 teams were too little. Florida State should have had an opportunity to compete after an undefeated season last year, despite losing their quarterback. But now, is 12 teams too much? Because after this weekend, we still end up with the top 8 teams seeded, and none of the other games were even competitive, Jason. Am I out of pocket for thinking 12 might just be too many?
Not at all, and that just shows that the NCAA still has kind of no clue on what they're doing. Yeah, you had the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th seed advanced. No other high ranking team advanced. So, and it was blowout games. This is not good, a good look for college football, because it's all about the product. You're putting the product. If the college football wants to be the NFL, and essentially that's what they're trying to do there. They're trying to drum up that kind of post-game postseason excitement that the NFL does. Playoffs, they're trying to bring this into it. And this fell flat. You had 4 really lousy games. I was very disappointed that some of these teams really just didn't show up. Indiana looked atrocious against Notre Dame. That Notre Dame defense just was stifling and shut them down. Texas, doing and handling their business. I would have thought Clemson would have showed up a little bit more after coming off their victory, but they fell flat also. So, yeah, I think college football needs to scale it back. This is not the NCAA tournament, March Madness. You can't have 64 teams and try to expect to have all these great games and all this great drama. You're just not getting it. You got 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, essentially, you're trying to make them into something that they're not. Let them play their games. Let them have their bowl games. This was kind of not a really good look for the NCAA. And I hope they don't expand it. And I hope they really take a good look at this and scale it back. I think 8 is enough. Yes, that was a TV show back in the 70s. A lot of people don't remember that. I am dating myself. But I think 8 is enough for college football. You have the great eight teams. Let's move on. You have 2 teams on bye. You have your other teams play, and then just shrink it a little bit, because this weekend was it was not exciting. It just did not have any drama.
And especially if you look at the caliber of the teams playing. Now, I know there's going to be probably at least 3 to 4 years of experimenting with the 12-team format. But I mean, you look at the teams who did lose, like Indiana. Indiana just didn't have the type of schedule that warranted them being in. Of course, if they weren't undefeated throughout most of the year, then they're probably not even considered for this playoff. Notre Dame was clearly the better team. SMU against Penn State, I said all along Penn State's defense was legit. And the fact that SMU's only touchdown came in the fourth quarter when this was all but over proved just that. Tennessee and Ohio State. Ohio State was a top 2 or 3 or 4 seed before the Michigan loss, to be fair. So it wasn't even close, like the talent level between Tennessee and Ohio State. Like that freshman, Jeremiah Smith, who has been getting comparisons to Megatron Calvin Johnson, like 6 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he just helped. And then, of course, like Texas probably could be one of those top 4 seeds if it wasn't to Boise State, if it wasn't to Arizona State, for them win their conferences. And Clemson just barely squeaked in because they won the ACC championship so late. But, I mean, Jason, I don't think I'm out of pocket for saying all of those teams were just less competition. By the way, before you answer, you guys can comment on our live stream while we're live right now on YouTube, on the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel, just like Sean Lucas did, the host of Wrestling Destiny, the host of It Stinks, a TV show review. ACC lets down. Bama could have been SMU spot and at least made a game. I'm glad Bama wasn't in here. That wouldn't be my argument because Bama also has looked pretty weird. But I just, SMU probably didn't deserve it as much as Dabo Swinney thought they did.
And it was the eye test. I mean, you could see that some of these teams don't have that caliber of player on their teams. That's why Ohio State consistently churns out, NFL players. Texas, churns out NFL players. Then they showed it this weekend, even with nil money, even with the transfer portal, the landscape of college football, yes, is changing. And yes, college football does need to change with the times and kind of get something going here to make this a little more exciting for people to enjoy. But 12 teams was just way too much. This was a weekend of games that really didn't need to be had, or it could have been better if you had those 4th, 5th, and 6th seeds and 7th and 8th seeds play against some, each other, as opposed to playing against some inferior teams. So I don't know if that actually helps these teams. So like Texas and Ohio State, and Penn State, and Notre Dame, they just played essentially August powder puff football leading into these other teams that just had a bye. So again, this is college football. These guys aren't used to doing stuff like the NFL. NFL getting the bye is great because you're going to rest, you're going to get healthy, you're going to get your team healthy. But again, now you're talking about college kids doing this. I don't know. I don't think this bodes well for Boise State and Arizona State, some of those other teams, because they've been sitting. These guys just played easy games. So now they're going to go in with all this momentum. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out with the next batch of games here, and see if really that play-in helps those teams rather than having the bye. So I'd be curious to see that.
Yeah, and those games will be on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and we'll be covering those next week when we're back for Out of Pocket. But want to switch to some NFL news. Also, Mac join us. A lot is just about matchups. Some teams may be better, but not match up well with others. And I don't think any of these teams. I don't think Clemson matched up well with Texas, Tennessee matching up with Ohio State,
Man,
SMU
all
with Penn
around it
State,
didn't
and
work, man.
it was all around just gross a little bit. But I do have a interesting person coming in. You guys remember him from last week. He's the Raiders guy who might be celebrating a Raiders win. I don't know if he's celebrating actually or not. I think Jason's celebrating more than he is. But I hear he might have a thing or two to ask about with the college football playoff. Please welcome from Drew Code Sports
Come
Talk,
on in, Cody.
Cody Johnson. Cody, my friend,
What's
what is up?
How you guys doing?
What's going on, man?
Man, Jason, you looking sharp, dude. I feel underdressed now for the show. So
no, it's the holiday edition. You know, I'm feeling very festive today. Got the gold tie on, so got to come fresh to impress. So, and again, I want to personally thank your Raiders for winning this weekend. Thank you so much. I guess they didn't get the memo that, like, you know, to get the first pick, you have to lose. Giants got the memo. That's why they put Drew Lock in. Thank you, Atlanta defense, for showing up and making my boys look good. I want that first pick. So,
and what's funny too is Drew, my co-host, my best friend, he was texting me. He goes, "It sucks that we dropped all the way to third." I go, "No, my friend, it's worse. We're sixth. We're missing out on the top 5 talent. It's worse than that." And he goes, "I need to start drinking." So that's where we're at right now. And, you know, I'm glad, though, that the Giants got the number 1 pick. Hopefully that they pull out a victory. But I do want to kind of go back to college football just for a second. So I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't watch hardly any of the games, maybe caught a few moments of it. But college playoffs is reminding me of, like, for those that are really into the sport, and previously before the playoff rankings, there was the actual 1 through 25 ranking, and the top 2 teams went to the national championship. The following seedings got into selected bowl games and all that stuff. I'm kind of curious, like, the college playoff system that continues to grow, I kind of feel like that's the fault of the college football fan because they always want more. Would I be wrong in thinking that?
I don't think so, but the answer to every question that has to do with just about anything is money. So This is an NCAA thing. This is money. This is TV rights. This is the NBA, the NCAA just trying to grow and hold on to what it has left. Of course, the fans want more. Fans love football, whether it's college, pro. We love it. We play video games. We do everything. I mean, we do anything to have football 12 months out of the year. But sometimes it doesn't work. And some of these other leagues have shown you that. And this weekend was just watered down and terrible football. And that's not good because it's all about putting the product on TV, because if you don't get the money, what good is it? And it's going to turn the fans off because who's going to watch these games?
Right. Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like 2 was just not enough. And of course, like, I mean, everybody sometimes they're just not going to be satisfied. There's always going to be bones to pick, like Florida State being left out. And then, you know, Sean, you know, it's like, why was Bama left out for SMU, and just so on and so forth. Chris saying should have topped at 8 teams in the playoffs. Matt's like, give me football. I don't care. Like, football is football. I miss it when it's February through August. That is a dead period, especially when basketball ends around June. Like, I know we have Chris's baseball, but man, there's something about football. So there is part of the consumer can't always be satisfied approach, but at least this is better than the top 2 teams getting it, and, you know, a third or a fourth or a fifth team getting robbed of it.
But also, is it really though?
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember when it was 1 through 25, there was a lot. At least I remember there's a lot more contentious arguments about the best 2 teams weren't playing. It was another team that should have got in over XYZ team. That was when they were doing just the top 2 teams objectively. There was no playoff. In fact, I think the playoff does give like a little bit of parity for those that should have an opportunity that feel like they play well enough. But, you know, to Jason's point and to Michael's point that you guys made earlier at the top of the show, like, just because you widen it up doesn't mean that it's better quality football. If anything, like, yeah, just because your record is better than Alabama or another SEC team doesn't mean that you can just go against these bigger teams and then be able to hold up. You know, it's kind of one of those things as fans where we want to see these matchups. We're getting what we're asking for, and we're seeing blowouts because it's not the same quality of teams that are playing one another as their record shows, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Until they kind of reseed everybody again, the Big 10, Big 12, Pac-10, but all that stuff is dead. You need to have like 5 conferences of the best teams and have them play. So if you're going to set this up like the NFL, set it up like the NFL, because you can't have where one team is playing 8 powder puff games and they play a couple of good games and then they're in there. You need to make this a little bit easier on the consumer, because they're not getting the best teams essentially because they're not always playing against each other. You got these schools that are playing, you know, these small schools and just eating up wins.
Right.
But that doesn't translate into actually playing good football on the field.
Right.
And Chris also chiming in, like, Kamig got it right, just didn't need 12 teams. Alabama would have suffered the same fate as all the other underdogs. Like, and that's the point. Like, yeah, they got a win, they advanced, and we know, like, all like 12, 11, 10, 9, they just weren't good enough to cut it. But it will be interesting to see what happens moving forward. Also, Derek Pauly chiming in from Pauly's Pick'ems. I'm not as well versed in basketball as 5 games on Christmas, the norm. It is, and we'll be predicting some of these games: Spurs, Knicks, Timberwolves, Mavericks, 76ers, Celtics, Lakers, Warriors, Nuggets, Suns. There's basically basketball from like noon to midnight. It is fun. It's fantastic. Have it on the background as you celebrate time with family and friends. Max saying number 1. I'm sure he's talking about me. Who's number 1. But somebody who decided to leave his team and, you know, had a falling out with John Harbaugh, whatever the situation was with the coaching staff, has now found himself on a new team. I want to talk some NFL before we get to these NBA pick'ems. Deontay Johnson, and you read that right, is Houston's problem now. He is being picked up by the Houston Texans after his release from the Baltimore Ravens. This is like his, 3rd or 4th team in the last 12 months. He starts with Pittsburgh, gets traded to Carolina, then gets traded to Baltimore, and now he's waived and signs with the Houston Texans. And unfortunately, this is because of Tank Dell's horrific injury. That was just heartbreaking to watch, heartbreaking to see CJ Stroud's reaction to that. And I'm hoping for a speedy recovery for Tank Dell. But, you know, Houston, they had Stephon Diggs. He's out for the year. Tank Dell, he's out for the year. Nico Collins wasn't doing too well. He's been off and on the field. So Houston needed to do something. Is Deontay Johnson the answer or the problem in Houston? Cody, what do you think?
It's hard to say problem at the moment because, to be completely compassionate about the situation, we have no idea why it didn't work out in Baltimore. There might be something where he felt like he should have been involved more. Maybe the game planning didn't go that way. You know, John Harbaugh, is known to team first, and that's it. Like, regardless of your of what stats, contract year you're on, he's all about the team, and that's bared fruit for Baltimore for all these years. And someone like Deontay Johnson, who in Pittsburgh, they're really good about highlighting their players because they lean on them heavily, which is why, you know, Russell Wilson needed George Pickens. Regardless of George Pickens' issues on the field or off the field, he still has a home in Pittsburgh. And that's why AB's, antics lasted so long in Pittsburgh as well. But I think Houston desperately needed some sort of quality wide receiver. Deontay Johnson, probably the only other one. And Michael, I texted you this. Probably OBJ would have been the only other one, but OBJ probably isn't up to at all being on a roster, being on a playoff caliber team like Deontay Johnson can probably be. My only thing is what's he looking like in this offense? Is he the number one option, or is he the number two option? Is he going to look like somebody that's going to get, 7 to 8 targets? Is CJ Stroud going to be able to locate him? Because now they got to build this repertoire with 3 weeks to go into the season, heading into the wild card. So to say if it's not going to work, I don't know. And I'm a little apprehensive, but I would say though, like, what else was Houston going to do? They don't really have any other depth. So kind of had to make this type of decision to even give them a fighting chance to even be relevant or to have a fighting chance when they get to the wild card.
And Cody, that's a great point, because you look at the depth chart. Nico Collins, obviously number one. Robert Woods was getting a little bit more playing time this past weekend when Houston was playing. John Mechie, the third, is he going to be healthy? He's currently been struggling. He might be questionable going into their next game on Christmas Day against the Baltimore Ravens. And Deontay Johnson is right there at the third string if Mechie can't get it. Jason, this I don't know. You need that chemistry between quarterbacks and receivers.
You definitely do. And Houston, we feel bad. Watched that Tank Dell live time on Red Zone. Shout out Scott Hansen. I love you. It was bad. I mean, your leg is not supposed to do that, and it's horrific. And that's one of the things that people really don't understand, in that the NFL is brutal. You can take away all the hits, put the guardian cap on, you can do all this stuff. It is still a contact sport where you can really do some damage. So I wish him well. And yeah, CJ Stroud was inconsolable. I'm surprised he was even able to finish the game, because that was his best friend, and he essentially watched him end his season, and hopefully not his career, because that was pretty brutal. But Andre Johnson's not walking through that door, so they needed some help. That Texans offense has been struggling even with Tank Dell on there. They're not focusing on the run. Joe Mixon has been kind of non-existent the last couple of games. They need to focus heavily on him. You're getting into playoff football. You're going to get into some weather games. So this is where it's going to be run first. You still have Nico. Dalton Schultz picked up and started playing well. That's why they signed him in the offseason. I don't understand why they're not utilizing him. He is a very serviceable tight end, and I think he's going to help. Where does Deontay Johnson fit in all this? It really just depends on how well he gets along with CJ Stroud. I think once he comes in, if he can just relate to and bond with CJ Stroud really quickly and kind of get on the same page, hey, this is what I expect from you, this might work, because Deontay Johnson deserves at least a shot. We don't know what happened in Baltimore. Carolina is a hot mess as it is. So we don't, we kind of know what's going on over there. So we knew why he wasn't going to last there very long. So, and he wants to compete. He wants to be a football player. He wants to be the number one, even though he's not going to be a number one there. But I could see him as a serviceable number two and getting on the same page with him, as long as he checks everything at the door, because you see how this Houston team plays. They are like a family there. You can see just the way they consoled and reacted what happened on Sunday. So Deontay Johnson needs to come in there and really bond with these guys. And I think it will succeed, because they needed to. Houston needed some offense, because there are just some high-powered teams out there that, they're not going to be able to hang with if they can't score touchdowns.
And they definitely need Deontay Johnson to have that team mindset. But, how things ended in Baltimore, I don't entirely know how that will go. Notably, last year with Pittsburgh, 51 catches, 717 yards, 5 touchdowns with Pittsburgh. When he was with Carolina this year, 30 catches, 357 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then when he got traded to Baltimore, 1 catch on 5 targets for 6 yards. It was not working in Baltimore for some reason or another. And
he's like the fifth option. I mean, how many guys did you have in Baltimore? You have Derrick Henry, Flowers,
Justice
Andrews,
Mark Andrews,
and then
Isaiah Likely.
So you mean he was the fifth or sixth option? Yeah. So I mean, that wasn't going to work out well.
And I do want to bring up this point. Can we agree that the Carolina Panthers are a worse ran organization than the Baltimore Ravens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Deontay Johnson, with all the distractions of Bryce Young not doing well, then going to Andy Dalton, in the midst of all that and all the fire that kind of went around how bad that team was, he didn't implode on the team. He actually still remained pretty productive and for the most part was a veteran on the field in terms of like getting production. And then to ask him to go on a championship caliber team and take a back seat, you're basically 10th on the roster, so to speak, when it comes to targets and getting the ball. And maybe he is, in seeing that the game is different, or maybe he's seeing coverage is different and he's just not connecting. And I think that you go on one team and you spend a few weeks, who knows what's going on. And Baltimore could say, oh, he's a problem child, but Deontay Johnson has also remained pretty quiet and could air out dirty laundry, and he's not. So I just also want to keep in mind that he probably will be really productive and he's probably a fine player. It's just, there's so many questions on whatever happened in Baltimore. Our first thought is like, well, it's the player's fault, clearly, because how do you not get along in Baltimore? And really, realistically, like he went into a situation that was better. But if he was really a problem child, referring to Deontay Johnson, he would have had it out in Carolina when they were at their lowest, and they had some pretty bad lows to start the season. So I will bring that to the table, at least for this topic.
And maybe he didn't last in Carolina. Now, what was all that made public, whether he wanted to, leave Carolina to go to a contender, or was he a trouble in the locker room? Like, I don't want to speculate there, but it doesn't look good that Pittsburgh, Carolina, Baltimore, now Houston. This is 4 teams in 12 months. If you told me I had 4 jobs in 12 months, I mean, potential employers would look at me and be like, Michael, what's up? What's your problem?
But he's still got a job. So obviously it's not that bad. That's why this is not an AB situation,
right?
Where the drama and the baggage comes with it. And you just like, dude, this guy's toxic. I don't want to touch him. A lot of these football teams are very cliquey. Their cultures are different. You walk in a building in every different city, you're going to feel a different culture. And, some people can't handle probably what goes on in Baltimore, the way they do things. I know as a New York Giants fan, when Tom Coughlin was up there, people hated him. But yet a lot of guys loved playing for him, and they got some. So there's just, you can't really gauge on what goes on in an NFL culture unless you're with that team. So I think he may fit in well in the Houston Texans because their culture is definitely different from a Baltimore Ravens culture. Plus, he might not like seafood. See, I'm not a big seafood fan. I don't want to be near Baltimore. I'd rather probably be in Texas because they probably do a little more meat and potatoes down there. So that'd probably be more my vibe anyways too. So I don't blame him.
So let's make it known. Jason wants to leave NY, his NY roots. He wants to come down to Texas.
I don't know. I didn't say that.
Blue and silver. I mean, hey, I knew it would come eventually, man. I knew it would come. What I didn't think would come this year is the Atlanta Falcons deciding to bench Kirk Cousins and go ahead and go with the rookie Michael Penix Jr. We talked about this a little bit last week on Outta Pocket when the news got announced, but now there's reports that the Falcons might look to cut Kirk Cousins just because they don't have to pay the $10 million roster bonus in March. Not to say they didn't guarantee over $100 million to this man. Guys, I'm going to be honest because, first of all, give Kirk Cousins credit because how he's handled this is very, very well. About as well as you could for a quarterback who was benched on a team who is still hoping for the playoffs, who as of today are leading the NFC South after the Buccaneers lost to the Dallas Cowboys last night. Just by the way, wanted to throw that in there. But Kirk was seen praying with Michael Penix before he went out there for his NFL debut. Michael Penix was able to get the job done against the Giants. Whether the Giants tried or not, I don't know. But I don't think you should cut Kirk Cousins. A, because all of that money is already tied up there. B, Michael Penix is unproven. And C, you have a veteran quarterback who you just owe all this money to. It's better to pay him at least, if nothing else, to mentor and be a serviceable backup to Michael Penix if he struggles or if he gets hurt, rather than just cutting him, still paying him, and letting him be on someone else's team. Jason, am I in pocket or out of pocket for that?
If it was your squad, would you want $100 million backup quarterback?
I mean, I want him starting.
This is terrible for the Atlanta Falcons. This looks, optics-wise, looks horrible. I'm surprised the team is handling it as well as they are. Penix handled it very, very well this weekend. Kirk Cousins is handling it well because he's rich. He's got all that money. He don't have to worry about it. He's going to get paid no matter what. Look, if the Falcons cut him, don't have to pay him the $10 million, that's still a $65 million dead cap hit next year if they release him. I see in the wings that they're trying to find a trade partner. I don't know any team that's going to want to trade for him, especially with what he just produced on the field here. So I don't know if anybody wants $100 million interception machine out there. So I don't know what the Falcons are going to do. I mean, it's, cut your losses, let them walk, get yourself a cheaper option at backup, and just suck it up and say, hey, I made a mistake. Or I don't know what you do if you're the Falcons. This is crazy. Again, Kirk Cousins, the greatest, I don't want to say con man because he's not really a con man, but his contracts and the guy that negotiates his contracts is the greatest of all time because, again, he has changed the landscape of the quarterback and the guaranteed contract. But what are the Falcons going to do? Man, I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to trade with him. Cut him, suck it up, write a check, and move on.
To be fair, Michael Penix didn't even have the greatest game in the world. 18-27, 202 yards in interception. So, to be fair, Kirk Cousins has a better touchdown to interception ratio than Michael Penix. I just want to throw that out there before Cody brings up his point.
Well, just like what we talked about on the last Outta Pocket, when we were kind of picking games and really talking about Penix starting and all that stuff, Penix was going to do fine. He wasn't going to fail, but also he's going up against an NFL defense. And what we were really lamenting to was that the Falcons defense was going to be probably the anchor of what wins them that game against the Giants. And there you go. I think the Giants gave up 2 pick sixes or at least one, right? So the defense really just protected Penix. Penix went out there, looked like a rookie quarterback, and he played the way that he played. And I think that's a little false optimism for the Atlanta Falcons, because if I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, I'm looking at it. I have a franchise quarterback. I have a guy in Kirk Cousins who is a really good above average quarterback, but not a franchise guy, which is why we drafted the rookie. But we're not starting the rookie because we paid a lot of money to this other guy. This other guy isn't doing well, so now we're going to start the rookie. But now we're going to put this guy on the bench that we're paying over hundreds of millions of dollars to, when you can just sign a backup who can teach this rookie the ropes as well for a third of that cost. And there probably is a team out there that would take on that contract because they do need a quarterback maybe in the immediate. It's possible, but what the Atlanta Falcons have done is they have both put themselves in a bad position at no fault to Penix or Kirk Cousins. What is Kirk Cousins supposed to stand on principle and not sign a fully guaranteed contract after coming off an Achilles injury that a team is offering him, like willingly to offer him? And what's Michael Penix to do? Be upset about not being the starting quarterback? He's paid and on a team. He's in the NFL. It's not like there's two quarterbacks coming into the situation and they're both the lead dogs. We kind of knew Penix was going to take the reins eventually. Kirk Cousins looks like a quarterback coming off of a major Achilles injury. That's no surprise. I think what is tough is the Atlanta Falcons are trying to act like they're the smartest team in the room, and it's causing more questions and more unpredictability to where I don't know what they want to do in the future, and that's more alarming than who they're going to go with at under center, in my opinion. And Kirk Cousins will probably wind up on his feet. He's got enough left in the tank. I think you get him a whole offseason to retrain, because now he had to go through a season of not being injured. And Michael Penix, hopefully he learns in these following games to be a better pro and to improve. I will say, though, the Giants defense, give them a ton of credit. They play hard all year, even though they have a bad record. So that's probably one of the tougher defenses Penix will go up against, because Giants defense, don't sleep on them. Just because they lose doesn't mean that they lie down. They are willing to put it on you, and they will take advantage of it. Penix, though, needs more time than just 3 weeks to figure out if he's going to make it or not, or to build up that confidence. So again, this is, to me, falling back on the Falcons, really outthinking themselves and trying to be too cute. And really, they're like playing chess with themselves, and they're losing. How they're doing that, I don't know.
And you did bring up a good point, like going up against Brian Burns, going up against Kayvon Thibodeau, like under a good bit of pressure when it comes to the Giants defensive front. I just thought of a funny scenario, and especially knowing that Kirk Cousins came off his Achilles injury, and what team would take Kirk Cousins in that contract? Can I just throw out
Don't say it.
The New York Jets?
Don't say
The Jets.
Oh.
The Jets. It almost makes sense to where the Jets would do it, and they would be like, "Hey, let's just take another chance on a
give
on
them a bigger contract just
quarterback."
to save face. Let's give them $200 million guaranteed. What the hell? No, the Jets. Holy cow! I hope they no.
It'd be the most Jets thing in the world.
It would be.
It's going to be musical chairs. So Michael Penix is going to start for the Falcons. Kirk Cousins is going to go for the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers going on the Giants. That's what's going to end up happening. Musical chairs.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Michael, you brought this point last week that teams just want to sell tickets. You don't mean to tell me the New York Giants would sign Aaron Rodgers just to get fans back at MetLife Stadium for their games?
100% after they let Saquon Barkley walk.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers will want to play against Dallas two games out of the year just because he's petty like that. But unfortunately, that could be a scenario that happens.
That would
Kirk Cousins to the Arizona Cardinals, because the Arizona Cardinals need to move on from Kyler Murray.
That's a hot take.
That might be out of pocket.
No, Cardinals continuously fall short every year. And if the Tampa Bay Bucks would have showed up last night and really just put the Atlanta Falcons out of it, none of this would be as dramatic as it is. But because Tampa Bay losing, Atlanta is now in it for some odd reason. Atlanta is still alive for the playoffs. So I think if Atlanta makes the playoffs with Penix, they're going to come out of this smelling a little bit better than they would if they just completely collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
What's so funny, before we move on to some NBA picks, what's funny about that are the two teams that Jason brought up are the only two teams in their division that has a positive point differential. The Cardinals are the only team in the NFC West who has a positive point differential this season, and they're eliminated from contention. They only have like a +2, but Tampa Bay has a +75 point differential, which means they've scored more points than they've allowed, and Atlanta's at -22. So if you want to think about how crazy those two stats are, that is pretty crazy. We're also having some conversations being brought up. Derek Polly agree with Jason's take. Jason, that might make you feel good. We might have to take that comment off the screen.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Derek.
He's getting a little too big-headed right there. But Derek Polly, appreciate you, my friend. Max saying they showed up. The boys just whooped that butt. And I'm sure Mac and I will get to talk about it on Dad and the Boys, kind of recapping this.
If I was just to carry on with the Cowboys, if I was Dak, I'd be upset. How come they weren't playing this hard when he was healthy and playing? Why was it going downhill when he was starting? Is it a Dak thing or is it the boys thing?
It's not a Dak thing. It's literally, do you see that schedule Dallas had? See, this is why I usually start with Homer's house to begin the weekends. And so I answer questions like this. I mean, Lions, yeah, you'll take the L. 49ers, L. Falcons, at that point, L. Eagles, L. Texans, L. Like, those are five pretty great teams. 4 of them playoff contenders, and one of them has always matched up better against the Cowboys. And then you have, the Commanders. That's a solid win. Buccaneers, solid win. Panthers, Giants, those are gimmies. Like, would have beaten the Bengals. I mean, this isn't a Dak thing. This is our schedule and all the injuries, like Mac brought up, and a new defensive scheme with Micah being out, DeMarcus Lawrence being out, Sam Williams being out, Marshawn Nealon being out. But that's a sneak peek to Dad and the Boys and some of the conversations we'll have. But Jason had 3 from deep earlier this afternoon. You guys can go watch it. Don't worry. It's available on demand through Boom Broadcasting. And I wanted to bring up some NBA picks because we do have some NBA Christmas Day games, and we'll also predict some NFL games as well before we go off the air today, before we head in to the Christmas season for Outta Pocket. But to answer Derek Polly's question, yes, we do have 5 games for Christmas. We have, starting off at noon, we have the Spurs, Victor Wembanyama at New York in Madison Square Garden. You follow that up with the Minnesota Timberwolves against the Western Conference champions, the Dallas Mavericks. And then you have the 76ers, who have been very injury plagued, going up against the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. You have the LA Lakers and LeBron and that whole pop and circumstance against Golden State in a very LeBron versus Curry rivalry. And then we follow it up with the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant. So we're being pretty spoiled for the most part when it comes to this Christmas Day. I personally wish my Miami Heat were there, but I understand why they're not. One run through these picks. We got the Spurs at the Knicks. The Knicks are favored in this game by 8.5. Jason, I know you started the day with some NBA picks, and you got your Knicks, don't you?
Oh, yeah, of course. This is going to be a great game. Victor Wembanyama, I know he plays tonight, but coming off that 30-point, 10-block game, I talked about it on 3 from Deep. That guy is an anomaly. Fantastic. Playing very well with Chris Paul. This is going to be exciting to see how he matches up with him and Chris Paul against Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. I think that's going to be awesome. I think the Garden is going to be electric. It's Christmas Day at noon. Spike Lee is going to be in the joint. Let's go. It's going to be very exciting. And it's also interesting to see that Disney is doing the animation with the basketball now. And that's something that kind of intrigues me because they've done it twice this year in the NFL when they did the Toy Story game, and then they just did the Simpsons game. So it's kind of interesting to see how these guys are trying to bring in a younger audience to these sports. So very, very excited to see this. I'm going to watch the live broadcast. I don't really want to see the cartoon version, but I just think that's very interesting on how the NFL, the NBA, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Major League Baseball follow suit, doing these things to kind of get that younger viewership, because they know that, you know, you already got some built-in fans. We need to get those younger fans. So it's going to be interesting, but this is going to be a great matchup. I'm excited to see Karl Anthony Towns go against Victor Wembanyama. I think Victor Wembanyama in the Garden, this is going to be exciting. So let's go Knicks, baby.
He's got his Knicks in one of the weird animated games for Christmas. Cody, it appeals to a younger audience, but what team appeals to you in terms of who wins the game?
So I actually, Jason, you're to like this. I think the Knicks as well. And here's why. I think Spurs are going to have a really tough time penetrating that defense because Thibodeau gets these guys really ready to go. Cat is a stretch kind of player, so he's going to pull Victor away from the paint a little bit. He's also going to put a body on him, and Victor, very small and undersized. We'll see how he handles all that power that Cat has. But Jalen Brunson, who's a magician with the ball, and you have all those perimeter defenders for the Knicks. I don't know how the Spurs are going to really keep up with the Knicks. I would not be surprised because this is probably one of the first years I've seen a lot of excitement with the Knicks of like they got in the playoffs last season, but now they actually feel like they're a contending team that might be able to push to the next level. And maybe it's at the trade deadline. Maybe they hold tight with the team that they have, but they have a better set of weapons that I remember the Knicks having over the last few seasons. So bit of optimism. I would not be surprised in the Garden. It's rocking, full of Christmas festivities, and a blowout appears on the Spurs just because the Knicks are going to come out and just put a stamp on this game. And this might be one of the games where we look back on and say, yeah, the Knicks have arrived because they've been doing that majority of the season. So I got the Knicks in this one.
Well, I'm going to be the lone wolf. I'm going to go Spurs. Now, a couple things you want to note. Both of these teams have won 4 of their last 5. It is Christmas Day. It is Madison Square Garden. Sometimes people, especially if they're playing in Madison Square Garden, or especially if they're playing in Christmas Day, their eyes can get as wide as a deer in the headlights. But I don't see that coming from Victor Wembanyama, especially after his recent 10-block game. This guy plays with so much poise. he plays like he's already 6-7 years deep in the league. He has done really well. I think Chris Paul being there is another benefactor. And so I am going the upset. I am going the Spurs on the road in Madison Square Garden to upset. Plus, they have a couple extra days of rest. The Spurs played 2 days ago, and the Knicks are going to have or the Spurs will play tomorrow night as well against the 76ers. So, or tonight, my bad. Tonight against the 76ers. So it'll be interesting. Spurs at 76ers, Knicks hosting the Toronto Raptors later tonight. But I still have the Spurs. Up next for our next Christmas Day game, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Dallas Mavericks. Cody, how do you see this one going? Do you think the defending Western Conference champions win it out?
I do. I think Luka and Kyrie are poised to have 2 really good games. They are probably in the top 3, I would say, best backcourts right now in the NBA. You stop in one, gets the other one involved. You stop the other one, again, the other one gets involved. And now that they added Klay Thompson, I definitely like the roster on this a lot more. My only concern, though, they don't really have a big guy that you can rely on that's going to get bored. So they're really kind of a little undersized. The one thing that I'm not really trusting with Minnesota is Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, that kind of combination. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, Julius Randle's like a good secondary option, and Ant is really putting on an MVP type of performance this year, but I don't think they have enough weapons to kind of get them over the top against the Mavs. I think the Mavs at home are a really hard team to play. And I think Luka, who just came off of a 50 game, if I'm not mistaken, not too long ago, I think he's poised for another big Christmas Day, and it's going to add to the list of top scorers that have happened on Christmas Day.
Jason, would you agree with that?
Yeah, the Mavs, they're starting to click on all cylinders. They tend to do this. They start off really, really slow in the season. And then once this time of year kind of clicks around, Luka, who I got him for MVP watch. So Luka, Anthony Edwards, and that Timberwolves team, 10th in the West. They really haven't been playing very well. They've been very disappointing. That trade where they sent Karl-Anthony Towns, got Julius Randle, got some 3-point shooting, and DiVincenzo, which I still miss him in New York. But that really is just not a good trade for them, because look at the results. They're 10th in the West. And the Mavs are 4th and moving up. Luka's on fire right now. MVP watch for him. Giving the Mavs all day. Anthony Edwards, everybody was ready to crown this kid last year. They made him the second coming of Jordan, or third coming, because I think they don't remember Harold Miner, Baby Jordan, they used to call him. So guys they tend to want to find the next big thing. Look, Anthony Edwards, he's a phenomenal player. He is an absolute stud. One of the biggest guys I would love to just pay and go watch, just because of talent wise, but it's not translating on the court right now. And the Mavs clicking on all cylinders. Give me Luka and the Mavs in a rout.
And Dallas win 8 of their last 10 helps with that a lot. I have the Mavericks as well, especially with seeing what the Timberwolves did give up. I know I just picked the San Antonio Spurs, but Karl-Anthony Towns averaging 24.5 points per game, 14 rebounds. He is obviously missed in Minnesota because Julius Randle hasn't replaced that productivity yet. So I got the Mavs as well. Clean sweep. And I'm assuming this is going to be a clean sweep. Philadelphia 76ers at the Boston Celtics. 76ers very injury-riddled. Celtics on the quest for back-to-back championships. Guys, I don't usually do my picks first. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Boston probably wins. Do we all agree on that?
Celtics, let's just move on to the next. The poor 76ers.
The NBA should adopt a flexibility, and they should have flexed out the 76ers, because this is going to be a garbage game. I don't see how this is competitive.
Yeah, they could have brought Cleveland
Sixers
in.
are bad.
To see that.
Yeah. Celtics terrible. All day.
So at Boston 9.5, do you think you would, let them come? Is this going to be a double digit?
Oh, over.
Smash the over. Smash the over. Yeah. Yes.
25 at least.
I'm going 30. I'm going 30. Cody, you want to put a number on that?
It is
I think over. I would say over 30 for sure. And the reason why is I'm curious, is Embiid going to play? And I just looked right now. He's their second highest scoring player, but he's only played 7 games. I doubt that he's going to play in this game, depending on if it's a back-to-back or not. So give me the Celtics. I'm not even messing with that. Over 30, that's probably a conservative number, to be honest.
Probably. So yeah, we'll all take Boston there. We all took the Dallas Mavericks. But who are we taking? The 16-12 Los Angeles Lakers are at the Chase Center, is what they call it now, playing the Golden State Warriors. The Lakers, the last 10 games are 5-5. Warriors 3-7. Both of these teams aren't playing their best ball, but it's going to come down to the Curry-LeBron rivalry, getting another chapter on Christmas Day. Cody, how do you see this one playing out?
Well, I got to go for my Lakers, of course. I think LeBron James with Anthony Davis, that's a hard combination. My only concern with is this roster. The role players need to step up a great deal. I think the Lakers are poised for a trade to happen, whether it's after this game or at the deadline, because they really need to change something. Because what is it, 3 or 4 new head coaches, same roster, and you still fire them after winning seasons? That's a roster problem, not a head coaching problem. But I do believe in the Lakers. I think they've already gotten a victory earlier this season against the Warriors. Warriors are kind of going through a little bit of a dry spell. Curry looked a little bit better in his last game, but these games are always really fun to watch because the Warriors come out firing. It makes the Lakers come out firing. But I think I just trust the interior defense and the post play of how Anthony Davis brings that aggressiveness more for the Lakers. So I'm going to go with the Lakers in this one in Golden State.
All right. He's got the Lakers. Jason, do you agree?
Primetime game. LeBron James, we don't know how many more Christmas Day games he has left in him, and I think he knows that. So I can see him wanting to have some vintage LeBron on Christmas Day. Anthony Davis is going to want that too. Give me the Lakers. The Warriors have just been playing really, really bad. Steph Curry has been getting his, but nobody else on that team. I mean, they regulated Draymond to the bench. Kuminga really hasn't stepped up. Buddy Hield disappeared. He started off hot and then just fizzled away. I just don't like the way and the way Steve Kerr sounds right now. They complain about the refs. They're just complaining about everything instead of just shutting up and playing some Golden State basketball. They're just not playing very well. They keep falling back. They're 7th in the West. Lakers are moving up. But give me some vintage LeBron on Christmas Day. He knows that his days are numbered. He may not do this again next year. Yeah. So I think he's going to want to go out there, drop a 40-point on him, do a little 40-point double-double or triple-double. Anthony Davis gets his 38 and 10, and I think the Lakers are going to whole-handedly kill Golden State because Golden State is just not playing good basketball right now.
Yeah, the real question is Draymond Green going to even finish the game? I think that's a more important question.
I don't know the over-under on that one. That's like that's between that and going for it on 4th down for Dan Campbell. It's like, which one is a guarantee? Draymond guaranteed to get kicked out of the game and get technicals, or fourth? I mean, so
if we go with the averages, the answer is yes, because leave it to Draymond Green to be the reason why his team falters because he can't stay on the court long enough to succeed. He's got to do something to fire them up, and that means toss them out of the game. I haven't seen him play like 82 full regular season games, and I don't know how long because of suspensions, whatever the case may be. So the question is, will he even finish on Christmas Day, I think?
Yeah, probably not, knowing Draymond Green. There's also some stuff going on, like Jonathan Kuminga, tweeting out some cryptic stuff, like, insinuating he may want out. Of course, all these trade rumors, they go haywire. Can you trust half of them that are on the web now? But also, like, I know that they're trying to find the chemistry between Steph Curry, Dennis Schroeder, Buddy Hield. With the Lakers, LeBron usually steps up for these games that he knows everybody's watching. Anthony Davis does as well. If Anthony Davis doesn't get hurt, will he finish the game? But Dalton Connect looks really good as a rookie. So I'm pulling for the Warriors. I don't like seeing the Lakers win. Sorry, Cody. I don't like LeBron as much now that he's left Miami, but I do expect the Lakers to end up pulling this out. And then we have the Denver Nuggets at the Phoenix Suns. Now, I noticed Jason and Cody are, pretty much agreeing. I'm sure Cody watched Jason's 3 from Deep earlier today, so he's gotten all the insight and everything. But I'll let Cody go first on this one. Does he want the Nuggets or does he want the Suns in this game?
Here's what I'll say, and I've said this before about the Suns. They are probably one of the last super teams that an NBA team will look to not put together again. You have all this talent and you're a game above 500, and you have one of the top 10 NBA players, arguably in today's NBA and probably in history, in Kevin Durant. And he's really the only thing that you have. Bradley Beal hasn't really stepped up. Devin Booker still is somewhat of a good player, but ever since you bring in these pieces to help him out, he's just kind of been in the foreground now. He's not front and center and really carrying this team. So it's weird because the Suns have everything going for them. They should be one of the top teams out of the West. They should be a powerhouse team. And yet they are the most like catastrophic teams. We don't know what we're getting. And I can't trust that. I think the Denver Nuggets, former NBA champions, you can trust Jokic, you can trust Jamal Murray, even though Murray needs to really step up. I don't know why he's off to this really slow start. It always happens. It doesn't ramp up until closer to playoff is when he finally comes alive. But, you know, you need him to step up. You need Michael Porter Jr. to step up. You need the role players of the Nuggets that help them win the championship and get in deep into the playoffs. You need those guys to really step up. But regardless of what I just said, I still trust the Nuggets at the end of the day because they're the team that's been formed the most. I like what Coach Malone has done with these players, and they travel. They can play anywhere, and I think that they're going to have their way with the Phoenix Suns. Will it be like a blowout? Probably not, but there's no answer for Jokic. I don't see anyone on the Suns that can contain Jokic, and he's going to be the guy that's probably going to get a Christmas Day triple-double and, you know, no look shooting it from the logo just because Jokic is that type of player where he puts the ball up, it finds its way in the basket regardless. So I got the Nuggets on this one.
He's got the Nuggets, and it's also important to note that, you know, Devin Booker might not play. He's getting reevaluated before the Christmas Day game, but if he does return for the Christmas Day game, that will be his first game back from injury, and Grayson Allen is currently out with a concussion. So, Jason, when you look at this, who do you have, the Nuggets or the Suns?
It's an interesting game, and yeah, the Suns definitely have not one of those other teams besides the Timberwolves that just have not produced when they should be. 11th in the West, Nuggets are 5th in the West. Kevin Durant, one of the greatest scorers in probably the past 20 years, who I still think is probably one of the most overrated basketball players. Just because you can score doesn't mean you can win games, and don't be surprised if the Suns continue to lose to see a reunion at Golden State and Kevin Durant with some trading. So be mindful of that, because I think if the Suns continue to falter, Kevin Durant's going to start talking, and I think the Suns will start cutting some ties and freeing up some payroll here. But give me the Nuggets. Joker is playing out of his mind. If Giannis and what he's been doing with the Milwaukee Bucks hasn't been really shining, Joker would be the MVP. Let's get my MVP watch, my top production staff here, MVP watch. Joker, over 30.9 points per game, 13 rebounds and 9.8 assists. So he's almost averaging a 30-point triple-double, which is absolutely ridiculous for a big man, the dad bod god. Joker averaging a 30-point triple-double for the season is unbelievable. I love it. So
I tell you what, he's my inspiration every single morning.
Yes, he is. Let's go, Dad Bod. I got into an argument with my best friend about abs or Dad Bod. Now, I didn't pick the right time to do it because we were at a gym and he was forcing me to do abs. And I looked over at one of the trainers. I was like, hey, Dad Bod or abs? And of course, she said abs, because that's probably how she makes her money, is people want abs over the Dad Bod. So I didn't necessarily recruit the best help, but now I have Nikola Jokic as the answer. But he's going to have a good game. But no matter if Jamal Murray plays or how well he plays, it's going to come down to Michael Porter Jr. I think it is almost time where Michael Porter Jr. may be going to another team at the deadline, going the Mikal Bridges route, like, hey, let me prove that I can be a number one somewhere else. That's what I'm starting to see, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's included in a deal to give more depth to the Denver Nuggets in hopes for another championship run. So I'm going Denver. You guys had the same picks as well, so we'll see. Wow. We'll see who's right, me or you guys. And really, the only difference is the Spurs and Knicks game. So I'm glad I was a lone wolf there. Now, are at the 6:30 mark. But if you guys are okay, I want to predict some NFL games before we leave.
Let's do it.
I'm on vacation. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We got some NFL games, including tonight's Monday Night Football matchup. We have the Saints at the Packers. We have a couple Christmas Day games, including a Thursday Night Football game I want to predict. But before we get into the next week of NFL games, let's talk about tonight. Who do we see, the Saints or the Packers? Jason.
This is an easy one, too. Packers. I mean, the Saints. I got 3 words, and I was just watching Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. Stink, stank, stunk. That's the New Orleans Saints right there. So give me the Packers. It's in Lambeau Field all day long.
Cody?
Oh, Pack. They they got the Grinch green on. They're gonna be stealing everyone's Christmas joy. They're the ones that are poised to be the dark horse in the NFC. They're gonna put a pounce on these Saints. They don't really have a defense to stop. And if anything, if anyone is in a fantasy playoff right now and you have any Packer players, might be the day where you win your league because there's just no defense to stop this offense. So give me the Pack.
I'm also going the Green Bay Packers. Unfortunately, the only league I was in that mattered. I lost last night, except unless the Green Bay Packers defense can have -3 points, then I will win my fantasy football league. So
you think Spencer Rattler sitting in a freezer is going to put up that many points on the Packers?
Man, I hope Spencer Rattler shows up. I hope Spencer Rattler.
The only -3 in Green Bay is the weather, baby.
Yeah,
it ain't
exactly.
I mean,
I know the number 2 defense in the league. So no,
I know. Fantasy football wise, they're ranked 5th on the ESPN app. They're projected for like 8 or so points tonight. It did not help that CeeDee Lamb sat most of the second half. Understandably, his shoulder is really banged up, but man, I was close. And yeah, Green Bay, if your defense can lose 3 points, and if my competition can't see this episode until then, I will be okay. But yeah, let me try to jinx them. Let me go Green Bay with this one. But Christmas Day, we have the 4 teams that played on Saturday. First, we have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Guys, this is going to be a phenomenal game. And since we don't have an Outta Pocket tomorrow, I will be posting the top quarter rankings just on social media for everybody's viewing pleasure after tonight's Monday night game. And the Chiefs and Steelers most likely are going to be on that list. Jason, who do you see winning this game?
Your Kansas City Chiefs, man. The Pittsburgh Steelers looked horrible this weekend. Just got crushed by Baltimore. Their offense is struggling. Their run game is non-existent. They are desperately missing Pickens, which is bad because Pickens is good, but he's not. I don't consider him as one of those Justin Jefferson type wide receivers. So Kansas City's rolling. Even a hobbled Patrick Mahomes looks unstoppable. Great win against Houston, even though I know Houston was kind of fighting uphill against a lot of emotion. But Kansas City, I think they're just going to crush them. Kansas City sees a path to a first-round bye and trying to get that three-peat, because if Kansas City can get that three-peat, you're putting Patrick Mahomes in a different stratosphere. So Pittsburgh struggling their offense. I don't trust it. Give me Kansas Cody,
do you agree?
I think this is where we differ. I think this is where an upset happens because this is going to be the 3rd game in 10 days that Kansas City plays. Chris Jones is reported not going to be playing in this game because I think he went out with an ankle injury against the Texans. So that is a huge defensive loss and pressure that Russell Wilson doesn't have to worry about. And this offensive line, I trust them on a short rest period than I do the defense of the Chiefs. And George Pickens is reportedly on track to play as well. I think what they were doing is they're holding out on the game that they just played this Saturday to bring him in on Wednesday. So that way it helps bolster their opportunity to maybe get the playoffs in. Because since they lost to the Ravens and the Ravens now clinched, Steelers really need to come out with some urgency and play. And I think that this is the game they do it in Pittsburgh, by the way, which is huge for them to get a home Christmas Day game. And I think they're going to be on fire. Also, too, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they're going to be really tired. Again, I think they could be on upset alert, so I'm going with the Steelers on this one.
Guys, I'm torn, and I'll tell you why. Mike Tomlin rarely lose back-to-back games. It happened last year around this time when they lost that third straight on a Saturday against the Colts. They had some weird schedules going on, but he had Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Now he has Russell Wilson. He also has a team vying for the AFC North. Patrick Mahomes isn't 100%. Like Cody said, Chris Jones might not show up, but is there any other team you would trust in this type of situation? Everything's going wrong, back against the wall, injuries here, injuries there, injuries everywhere. The Kansas City Chiefs have more weapons, but I'm going with the upset, and this will secure Mike Tomlin for Coach of the Year if the Steelers can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't like making Jason the Lone Wolf picking the Kansas City Chiefs. I wish Cody disagreed with
the Kansas City Chiefs #1 the whole stinking year.
Hold on, Jason. You were telling everyone that you can't trust them and that the Bills are the only one to trust. So I find it funny that you're defending the Chiefs. Look at how the tables have turned in this scenario.
They have.
So I'm going to leave Jason on Island defending the Chiefs. I'm sure he'll comment when I put up the top quarter rankings and still have the Chiefs #1. Spoiler alert. We'll actually do our due diligence and do our research tonight. But yeah, I'm putting my neck on the line out there. I got Pittsburgh in an upset just as Cody does, but that's not the only game on Christmas. The Baltimore Ravens, who beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, go on the road to play Deontay Johnson and the Houston Texans, who lost to the Chiefs. Jason, how do you see this one coming out? Ravens, Texans.
Hand the ball to King Henry and go get a win. Baltimore Ravens, you have the recipe to win. This is interesting that, Deontay Johnson now going against his kind of former team. We'll see how that dynamic works. My biggest concern is both of these games are on Netflix, so I want to see how well the broadcast is going to be and the stream is going to be. So a little worried about that here. But I got Baltimore. I think they're just playing really, really well. Deontay Johnson coming in, he may help, but I don't think he's going to be that big of an impact this easy and this early in this new marriage that he has with them. Houston is coming off a lot of emotion right now. I mean, I feel bad for them. Dell, I hope he gets better. Again, that was a gruesome injury. So Houston is really trying to play with a lot of emotion and play through it. But give me Baltimore. I think just running Derrick Henry, their weapons are playing well. Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson. Right now, C.J. Stroud has not had a very good year. He's had some brief moments of greatness, but he has not been consistent and kind of in that sophomore slump. So give me Baltimore. I think they take care of Houston. They see the Steelers lose, and Baltimore shoots past them and takes hold of that division.
Jason just gave a Christmas present to his co-host for Sideline Savants, Wayne, a big Ravens fan. Mac, I appreciate your comment, but who are the chefs? Cody, who you got? We got the Ravens and we got the Texans.
Man, this is a tough one. This is going to be a fun matchup, and Netflix is really trying to iron out all the issues before they get to the WWE because, as we know, that's less than 10 days away before they start going. Yeah, they start going on Netflix full time. So they got to work out their kinks with like the Logan Paul and the Tyson fight. They got to work out the Christmas Day game. So we're just ironing out issues before we go full streaming on WWE. But I say all that to say, look, as much as I love Lamar Jackson, they've clinched. I don't think that they are going to be as they're going to have such urgency to really get some momentum in the postseason. I think what they're going to do is you may see them not put themselves in a harm situation to get injured right before the postseason. So I actually can see the Houston Texans winning this game just because they're in Houston. They're coming off, as your point, Jason, really emotional from the Take Dale situation. And I think they're going to use that as motivation to really kind of get themselves in the right mind, right position. They're going to play for Tank. And I have a feeling that Deontay Johnson may be used in this game because he knows a little bit of that offense. He's got the freshest legs essentially on the team, so that you can probably see him being utilized a little bit more. And then also, too, Houston's defense underrated, especially in the secondary. I can see Lamar Jackson making some throwing errors, and you got the secondary back there to really pay for it. You still have Will Anderson that can pressure Lamar Jackson, who's just as quick as him. So I don't know who the favorite is on this one. I'm assuming it's Baltimore, but the Texans, in my opinion, at home, I like those odds a little bit better than Baltimore, who's already clinched, which is why I think they'll take their foot off the gas a little bit. So I got Houston.
Well, the line opened at 3.5 Baltimore. It's moved to 5.5. So people are getting on the Baltimore bandwagon, if you will. I'll go ahead and tell you guys why I have the Houston Texans losing. I think it's a great point Cody just brought up. Maybe Deontay Johnson being brought to Houston for a little more intel before Christmas in preparation for that game. But Houston has not looked like Houston since they beat up on the Cowboys, 34-10. Me and Mac were, commenting like Dallas for most of the year was teams a get right game, and it was anything but for Houston. Before that, they lost 2 straight to the Jets and Lions, and then they beat up on the Cowboys, but they haven't looked like a playoff team since. Losing the Tennessee Titans, barely beating the Jaguars, barely beating the Dolphins, losing the Chiefs, of course. I just look at the Baltimore Ravens. They're trying to win this AFC North, so they don't have to risk going to Pittsburgh. Anyone would have to come to Baltimore for that first matchup in the playoffs. So I got Baltimore. I trust Lamar. Lamar, to me, is having a better year now than his MVP year last year. So give me the Ravens with this one. And then we have Thursday Night Football before Outta Pocket is back on Friday. We have the Seattle Seahawks and the beloved Geno Smith, who threw the game-sealing interception yesterday against the Chicago Bears, who are just as unfortunate with how events turn out to be. The Chicago Bears obviously losing this past week against Detroit Lions 34-17. So it's quite the matchup on Thursday. We have the Seahawks 8-7 trying to win the NFC West against Chicago Bears, who are well out of the playoff picture. Cody, Bears, Seahawks, who do you have?
I'm checking the weather right now. I want to see how bad of a game it is in Chicago, because that place gets really cold right around this time of year. And don't get me wrong, Seattle's a cold place as well, but that wind in Illinois hits different. As much as I want to side with Seattle, and by the way, the last 3 picks I've gotten right on Seattle losing because I just don't buy them. I think that they are a team that plays well, but Geno Smith, unfortunately, as well as he plays, is also kind of, has a lot of errors. Now, I'm not saying that Chicago's this great team that's going to, pounce on them or anything like that. They've got their issues too. But at home for Chicago with Caleb Williams, with the weapons that they have, Seattle's having to travel over to Illinois on a short period. I think that I trust Chicago a little bit more. And unfortunately, this is where the Seahawks lose their playoff bid in the NFC West because it's going to the Rams, as I mentioned. So I got to go with Chicago. I think that just based on the healthy bodies that they have, the weapons that they have, I don't think Seattle is going to be able to travel well and play well. So I got the Bears in this one.
He's got the Bears. Jason, do you agree?
It's going to be 42 and a light rain, not a lot of wind. So Chicago, I think, is going to be okay. This is the dumped at the prom game. Both of these teams kind of all season, you show up to the prom, you look good. You look good for those few games, and then you just you get dumped and left. So both of these teams struggling right now. Chicago really looking for an offensive identity. Caleb Williams, again, rookie season, but has been kind of an up and down. And it's not any fault of him. Unfortunately, that organization has always had their issues with grooming quarterbacks, and they have shown that they're not very good at it. Seattle, they tend to lay an egg and then bounce back. So I'm going to take Seattle in this game. I just think they have more weapons. Seattle's defense a little bit better. Chicago has a good defense too, but I think if Seattle can put Caleb Williams and pressure him, put him on his back, he's going to have another struggle bus game. So Seattle still alive for the playoffs. Nobody wants to win that West. It's amazing, because the Rams will turn around and lose this weekend too, and then we'll just have this. We'll probably have to have a coin toss or some crazy thing to choose who's going to go in the West. But give me Seattle. I like them a little bit better in this game. I think Geno bounces back. Right now he's playing for a job next year.
Yeah, see, this is tough for me because I haven't bought Seattle all year. I predicted Chicago would win the NFC North. And was looking kind of decent when the team was 4-2. You guys laugh, but they were 4-2 headed into their bye week, and they've lost every single game since, especially when Jane Daniels hit that Hail Mary, and it's been brutal since then. They fire Eberflus, and they still can't win games. It's been tough if you believed in Chicago like I did. But Seattle has been better on the road, more so than they have been at home, which is uncharacteristic for the Seattle Seahawks. I think Chicago, as much as the team never admits they are tanking, they look at the rest of the league. They know, like, there's a lot of 2, 3, 4 win teams. I don't think Chicago wants a 5th win. So I'm going to go ahead and take the team who is fighting for their playoff lives in a cupcake gimme game. I got the Seattle Seahawks winning this Thursday night game. And as I mentioned, Out of Pocket, we'll be back on Friday to predict some of the rest of the weekend games. Guys, we hope you have a phenomenal Christmas. I was a recent guest on Drew Code Sports Talk. Drew Code Sports Talk is a YouTube channel that you guys can go subscribe to. Jason had his 3 from Deep NBA podcast. So if you want some more coverage on the Christmas Day games, that is what you can watch available on demand through the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel. And guys, we'll still continue to have content for you throughout the week. I know Chris will bring out Dugout Debrief. I'm sure Shannon will drop a Quick Hits episode. I'll drop a couple episodes as well on, my Cowboys content with Dad and the Boys, maybe a Starstruck. In addition, we'll do Drop the Mic potentially, Man Behind the Mic a little later this week at its normal Saturday drop. But guys, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for making this a phenomenal year for Boom Broadcasting. It's been awesome to bring this to you in 2024. We hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. If you guys want to enjoy time with your family and friends, we encourage that. We appreciate that. And if you find time that you want to get away from your family, we understand some of you are in that situation. Boom will have you content either live or on demand for your viewing pleasure. But for myself, Michael Davis, for Jason, for Cody, this has been Out of Pocket with Michael Davis. We wish you a Merry Christmas, and we will be back here on Friday, and we will see you then. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Woo!
Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. We had a ball making it. Thank you very much.